Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Returning to Work After a Career Break, hosted by the International Association of Women, IAW. For those of you who are not familiar with IAW, we are a global in-person and online professional networking platform that provides nearly 1 million women with the forum, education, and services to thrive in an interconnected world. Today's webinar is part of our Horizon Insight series, offering interactive virtual events and content featuring experts who provide insights on the issues that help us shape our careers. Now, before I introduce our speaker, some housekeeping. Everyone's on mute. Questions. There will be time for questions at the end. You can submit them in the tab that is right below the viewing screen on your control. Depending on the volume of questions, we may not get to everyone. If this happens, we will answer questions via email. Now, the number one question I get is, will recordings be emailed? And yes, they will. After the session, you will not only receive confirmation from Bright Talk, but tomorrow we will make sure you receive another link with the presentation. Well, enough about us. I'm thrilled to introduce Pamela Weinberg, who is a certified career management coach and personal branding strategist working with individuals in all stages of career development. From millennials to women in transition to career changes, Pamela provides coaching to help clients reach their career and branding goals. Pamela is a frequent speaker in colleges, universities, corporations, and professional associations. I have to say, after speaking with Pamela over the last few days, I am super excited. So enough about me. I'm going to pass it on to you, Pamela.
Thank you so much, Melissa, and welcome everyone. And I'm so happy to be here virtually with you all today. You got to hear a little bit about me from Melissa, and I'd love to learn a little bit about you before we launch into our presentation, because that will help me formulate some examples and really get a sense of what you're looking to gain from the webinar today. So I'd like to, Melissa, if you don't mind launching our poll, that would be great.
So Pamela, I am having a little technical difficulty. So I do apologize. I thought I hit launch. Oh, you know what? There's a little button, start voting. Technically, this is where I'm not good, Pamela.
Okay, that's okay.
So everyone can vote right below the screen. There is, next to ask a question, there is a tab called vote, and you can click on that right there.
So it seems like not everybody has voted. Does everybody see where the poll is? Are there questions or issues regarding the poll? Not that you can answer me, but if you have technical difficulties with the poll, just put in you can put it in the question box, and then I'm going to get started. Okay, so it looks as though many of you are employed, but are interested in the topic, maybe to change careers, maybe you're thinking about changing the type of work you're doing, or going from part-time to full-time, or want to learn some tips and strategies about sort of balancing, work and family. So we'll try to cover all of the above as we go through the presentation today. So let's get started. Returning to the workplace. So for those of you who have been out of the workplace and want to get back, good news is nearly 3/4 of the people who want to get back to work do. So that's great news for everybody who wants to return. 1 out of 3 college-educated women voluntarily leave their careers at some point or reduce their work to part-time status. More than 1/3 don't resume their prior occupation when they come back, and Many women prefer something between opting in and opting out. We're going to talk a lot about, the types of work that's available and what's sort of trending in that area right now. So let's talk about some common concerns that people have if they are searching for a new career or maybe feel underemployed and want to get better footing in the job market. So one of the biggest issues, far and away, that women have that I work with. So I work with a lot of women as individuals. I'm a career coach, and I specialize in helping women get back to the workplace after a career break. That's one of the areas of specialty that I have, which is how I came to really know and be a student of this topic myself. And one of the biggest areas is lack of confidence. So that's something that I work on a lot with my clients, and we're going to talk about today, what things one can do to build confidence, to feel better about job search, feel better about your career, and get the jobs that you want. Finances. So, when we talk about what's important to someone in a career or a job, pretty much money is at the top of everyone's list. So, there's a lot to think about versus, with finances, considering women who are going back to the workplace. And one of the big things that women think about is, am I paying, daycare or a babysitter more than I'm earning? So that's something to really think about, and is that important to you? And how do you think about that, that child care piece? Career demands versus satisfaction. Do you have flexibility? Do you need flexibility in your careers? How many years have you invested? Are you willing to maybe take, if you left your job as a manager and you want to come back to work, you may not be able to get a manager position. Is that something that's okay for you? These are things to keep in mind. People need role models, people who've done it well. It's really great to have mentors in the workplace or sponsors in the workplace who can help make these transitions easier. Really important to have your spouse or partner be supportive and on board. I've worked with a lot of women who have been home for a while, and their spouses or partners are really used to them sort of handling a lot of the domestic side of their lives. And if they're going back to work, they're not going to be able to do that as much. So the division of labor is going to become much more important. So I think, getting your spouse or partner on board with your decisions, as far ahead as possible is really important. Another common concern is limiting assumptions. That's probably up there with lack of confidence. And one of the most pervasive limiting assumptions is, why would anybody want to hire me when they could hire maybe a recent college grad instead, or somebody who's better at social media than I am? So those limiting assumptions, we call them, really block us from making progress. So we want to really work on those voices in our heads that, tell us, we can't, or somebody can better than we can, and work on building the confidence, because building your confidence will help to quell those voices that we hear. Workforce trends. So I said we were going to talk a little bit about trends in the workplace. And the good news is on our workplace trends is that many of them are very favorable to women in work. And one of the areas that I can't even say it's so new anymore, because it's probably been around for 10 years, but there continues to be more and more opportunities, are returnships, which are sort of, adult internships for women. It started out in the financial services field. I think Goldman Sachs may have been the first company to offer a returnship. And they're usually, 10-week programs where you're hired to be in this 10-week training program, and you're paid, and you are retrained in your field. So if you were a woman in finance and you took time off from the workplace for a while and you wanted to come back, you would be retrained in your area or a different area, and they would help place you into a job. So now they have them, in financial services field, law firms, consulting. One just came across my desk yesterday in the marketing and creative services field. So many companies are realizing that, as women left the workplace, there's a real brain drain, and there's also real pressure on these companies to have more women, to really have more women represented. So it's sort of a good time to be a woman in the workplace because companies need your numbers besides your talent. Work-life balance. Companies also realize that we all have lives outside of work, women and men, and they want you as employees to feel happy and feel satisfied and feel like you can do both. So work-life balance is something that's not just given lip service to anymore, but companies are really taking a long, hard look at because they want to be able to retain their talent and keep women employed who have children, make them feel like they still can be in the workplace and be valuable in their company. Consulting and freelancing, this really was a trend that started back in 2009 when the economy is in bad shape, and companies let people go, and rather than necessarily hiring people back, they decided that they would take on consultants and freelancers. Why? They didn't need to provide them office space necessarily, nor health insurance. So companies realized they were saving a lot of money, and women realized, hey, this is something I can do. I can make money, but I can still do it on my terms and be flexible and maybe be able to, do soccer carpool in the afternoons. Placement agencies targeted to women. So one of them that I really like is called flexjobs.com, and that's a subscription service aimed at job seekers who want part-time jobs, flex-time jobs, or freelance jobs where they can telecommute, and they, are especially have an eye out for women who are looking to go back to work. So we're going to launch into now the Return to Work Action Plan. This is something that I created to work with my clients on, and I'm going to share this with all of you, and it's going to give you a real step-by-step approach to how to get back into the workplace. So a couple things to keep in mind. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. So you're going to hear a lot of information today, but you have to just sort of take it in your timetable and take it as it comes, and just realize that it's difficult to balance. The work-life balance portion is difficult. 56% of working moms and 50% of working dads find it very or somewhat difficult to balance work-life. What I also see is that women often have shifting goals, career goals, depending on their parenting stage. It may be that, when your children are younger, you want to, take some time off or sort of slow down a little bit until your children get into preschool. Other people have another approach, and they want to sort of push through and then maybe scale back a little bit when their children are in high school, when they feel like they want to be around more for homework. So you have to feel comfortable about your own approach. Again, there's no one size fits all. So let's talk about our options for returning to work. So basically, you can change careers, you can return to the same career, you can develop a part-time career, or you can become an entrepreneur. And I work with lots of women who have decided to do the entrepreneurship route, which is a lot of fun, more flexible in certain ways, a lot more work in other ways. But it's definitely a great option to think about if you have that idea that it's a good time to maybe go for it. So we're starting on the assessing and analyzing portion of the plan. We're going to define our career objectives, and this is probably one of the most important starting places to really start to think about what do you like and what are you good at? And this doesn't have to only be skills gained from jobs. Many of you may have volunteer experiences that you feel were very valuable to you, where you gained skills and you got different interests. So you want to think about what those skills and interests are, and And you also want to think about, I like to sort of say talk about this from another direction also, what don't you like that you might be good at, that you might not want to do again? I've worked with women who are CPAs, and they're great at numbers, and they were great at accounting, and they were great at spreadsheets, but they're like, you know what, I never want to do that again. So just because you're good at something doesn't mean it has to be what you're going to be passionate about going forward. So keep that in mind as well. Priorities and values. Work values are really important to think about. What motivates you? So I said a couple of slides ago that salary or money is one of the most important motivators for most people getting back to work. But a lot of times people also value their flexibility. So, money and flexibility don't always go hand in hand. So you have to really, I urge people to really think about your values. What are the 5 most important things for you? Maybe you don't want to have a long commute. Maybe you want to work in a certain type of office environment that shares your values, et cetera. So really, think about what are the things that are important to you. And if you're not exactly sure what you want to do or what your skills or interests are, what your priorities and values are, there's lots of fabulous assessments and tools you can look at, and I've listed a bunch of them here. You also can assemble a personal board of directors. This is one of my favorite tools, and it's free. Your board of directors can consist of a close friend, a mentor, a colleague, peers, former bosses. I don't recommend it being a spouse or partner, and that can a little bit be too close to comfort, but it's people who know you in a professional capacity and people who know what you're good at, know what your skills are. You're thinking about, what you are the go-to person for. And your personal board of directors is great. You can bounce things off of them. I'm thinking about going into the travel industry. How do you see, do you see that as a good fit for me and why? Or, I'm going to get my LinkedIn profile, up to date, and I'd like you to check in with me at the end of next week to make sure I've done it, to keep me on point and keep me accountable. Because one of the hardest things about looking for a job is that accountability. It's often very lonely to look for a job. You're sitting maybe alone at your kitchen table. So, I would say having that board of directors really helps you to remain accountable. Career assessment and preparation. So once you've done some of the other assessments on the previous page, learning about your skills and values and priorities, then you're going to hopefully start to focus in on what fields you're interested in and do some more career research. You went from being inwardly focused to being outwardly focused now. So you're going to focus on the different industries and careers that interest you. And I've listed a bunch of great resources here to help you do that. The first 2, believe it or not, are put out by the U.S. government. And I really like both of them because it allows you to be really specific and put in your zip code, learn what the hot career fields are literally in your town or area, who's hiring, what types of jobs are available, and what some of the salaries would be. So I think that those are really useful. Vault and Glassdoor are more, can be more national. Vault is a great way to learn about a variety of industries, and Glassdoor is a great resource for learning about a variety of companies that you might be interested in. Pivot Planet is a really cool tool. Say you've decided that you wanted to open a cafe, but you've never run a cafe before or worked in a cafe before, and you want to really learn what it's all about. On Pivot Planet, you can find someone who has posted that they would be interested in mentoring somebody who is looking to open a cafe. You pay for their mentorship, but it's a great way to actually get into the trenches and learn about a new career without having to invest all of your money in that cafe. You're investing a little bit of money to learn the ins and outs of the business, to learn whether or not it would be something that would be appropriate for you. So I think that's a great tool. So let's stop for a minute and talk a little bit about some challenges and roadblocks before we leave this section of our assessment section. So one of the things that, that I have found with clients is time management and accountability. That's really tough. And as I said, for people who are, working from home or looking for a job, on your own, it's really lonely and it's really hard, to remain sort of motivated. And, I know what happens to all of us. Maybe you're applying for a job on LinkedIn and you send your application in, and then you start, looking around on LinkedIn for another company. Then you go to the company website, and then you remember that you needed to, order this new pair of sneakers for your child. Then you go on to, Amazon, and, before you know it, you've spent, 3 hours online and have accomplished very little. So I say, be accountable to yourself, manage your time well, set a timer and, put this in your calendar as your non-negotiable. So, every day from 9 to 11 is going to be my job search time, and have serious, keep yourself on a schedule, and be accountable to yourself or to your personal board of directors as well. Networking groups, career clubs, many of your alumni associations have, excuse me, career groups that you could meet and network together with other people who are looking for jobs, or just have a place to meet once a week, once a month. Great to have those options and something, to look into through professional associations or your alumni association. Some other challenges and roadblocks, unfortunately, age discrimination is one. I work with women who are in their 50s, who are going back to the workplace, who've been out for a while, and they do feel that their age can be an impediment. So it's really being conscious of that and learning how to sell yourself because of your age and experience, not despite of. Fear of technology and social media for those who have been out of the workplace for a while and feel behind regarding technology and social media. And boy, I mean, that's changing so quickly. So we all probably feel behind in some ways. Make sure that you get up to speed. This is one of those things that one of the confidence builders that I mentioned before. Don't let that fear stop you. Don't have that voice of, the limiting assumption, no one's going to hire me because I don't have those skills. Get the skills. Don't allow that to be your barrier. There are lots of classes and workshops that you can take, a lot of some free, some low cost, where you can help to gain new skills. And I'm going to give you some examples of those coming up soon. So now that you have pinpointed, hopefully, your specific jobs and industries that you're interested in, it's time to align your desires with the realities of getting there. So what do we need to do first? We need to set goals, because without goals, we don't know where we are going. Goal setters enjoy up to 80% more productivity. So I would encourage all of you to set goals that are SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. I'm sure many of you have heard this acronym before. In my experience working with this population, I would say the R is often the sticking point. Can you realistically achieve your goal? So if your goal is to get a job in 3 months and you've been out of the workplace for 3 years, that's not a realistic goal. So I really urge you to set goals that you feel you can attain. Maybe instead of getting a job in 3 months, you want to, in 3 months, have gone on, 3 interviews. So, set your sights where you can realistically achieve them, because that will continue to keep you motivated. So I talked a little bit before about, building your skills in social media and other things you may feel lacking. So we're going to talk more about that now. I'm going to give you some specifics. So most of us will have to acquire new skills depending on which field they're returning to. I know for myself, when I started doing what I'm doing, I really needed to learn how to write a PowerPoint presentation. I'd never done that when I was in the workplace. So I went on YouTube and learned, and YouTube is one of the best ways, I think, to learn anything. You can find a video about learning just about anything on YouTube, and the nice thing about it is you can just pause it at any point and rewind and go back and replay it until you get it. So I think that's a great resource. Building these skills is going to help you build confidence. You are going to feel, if you walk into an interview and they say to you, can you do Excel? You're going to be able to say yes with confidence. Can you utilize Instagram, for our social media? Yes, with confidence. Know what you need to learn in your field and go out and do it. You can take classes or lectures in your interest area. There are certificate programs. When I became a coach 10 years ago, I went back and got my certificate in coaching at NYU. You may want to get an additional degree, and certainly a computer and technology upgrade. And this also is a great resume builder, shows potential employers that you really are interested in learning more and getting more experience in a certain area, and that you spent the time and the money to do so. And also it helps expand your network. I know, for myself, when I went back to school, I met so many colleagues who I'm still in touch with today. Volunteer strategically. So I spoke about this, I think, at the beginning of the presentation, that your skills don't have to be skills that you got only through a job, but they can certainly be skills that you got through volunteer work. So I'm a big believer in smart volunteering. So I would say to volunteer in an area where you want to gain skills. I've had many clients who have volunteered in a company or a nonprofit and have ended up gotten hired as a full-time employee because they were in the right place at the right time, and they did a great job as a volunteer. And according to LinkedIn, 41% of employers said they considered volunteer work as important as paid work. That's a big number. So, people will say to me, Pamela, should I put my volunteer work on my resume? Absolutely. It's work. You may not be getting paid for it, but you're accomplishing real things. And you want to be able to talk about your volunteer work in a way that you're, continuing to build skills. It's also a great way to make connections and to increase your network and potentially have somebody who can write you a reference when you are applying for jobs. So, A+ on volunteering as a tactic. So now we want to think about creating an action plan. We talked about the goals, so we have an idea of what some of our goals are. Now we're going to really narrow down our goals. So this is for a client that I worked with whose goal was to become a development executive. She had been volunteering in her child's school in the development office, and she decided she really liked it. She was a former attorney. She decided she really liked it, but wanted to get more experience and wanted to get a full-time job in this area. So her goal was to learn more about fundraising and donor development. Her objective was to get credentials and experience in the field. And her action to do this was getting a certificate in fundraising from NYU so she can really learn the lingo, the ins and outs, maybe how to write grants, whatever skills she needed in order to do well in this position. And she was going to continue volunteering in the development office, and she was going to give herself 2 years to get this done. And spring of this year now, she is ready to look for a full-time job. Now we're in the action phase of the presentation. So networking is probably the most important thing you can do to get your next job. 80% of jobs are gotten through people we know or people who know you. That's a huge number. So network, network, network. Have your 2-minute pitch, elevator speech ready. Be prepared to talk about who you are and what you want. Get those informational interviews going. It's a great way to gain knowledge, to build competency, and to continue to make and strengthen those connections. And those informational interviews are crucial to letting you know what skills you need to succeed in whatever area you're looking into. Remember, follow up and keep in touch. Networking is not a one-way street or a one-time call. It needs continue. These are relationships that you're building with real people. So remember, give those relationships care and feeding. Check in, send an article that you thought they'd be interested in. Make sure to keep in touch. And remember, it's a two-way street. You never know when someone in your network is going to need something from you, whether it's an introduction for someone that you both know or a recommendation. So, realize that it's always a two-way street. Practice these conversations. Again, the biggest confidence builder is practice. Practice wherever you are, talking about yourself to others and telling and letting people know what you are looking for. Interview prep. So once you've sort of, done your informational interviews, you've done some networking, you may be ready to start interviewing. How do you go about doing that? Again, practice and role play. I sit there for, entire sessions with my client, having them answer the question, tell me about yourself. Probably the hardest question anyone could ask, tell me about yourself. So know that answer. Why would somebody want to hire you? Look the part. Buy that new suit, that new dress, get that haircut, make yourself feel good. Again, that's such a confidence builder to feel like you're professionalizing yourself and your look, making yourself feel and look up to date from maybe the last time you were in the workplace. Line up references. This could be, from one of your volunteer positions. This could be from a former job. This could be from a committee you worked on, through a church or school. Make sure to have those references. You don't have to have a written reference, but just know in your mind who you're going to ask and ask them or let them know, hey, I'm going on a couple of interviews. Would it be okay if I gave you as a reference, just so they're aware? Update your LinkedIn profile. Make sure that's ready to go and has an up-to-date photograph of you and really puts your best face forward on what your brand is. Okay, and we're going to talk more about LinkedIn coming up shortly. So resume, the gap, the dreaded gap on the resume for those of you who have been out of the workplace. So that's a question I always get, Pamela, how do I handle the gap on my resume? I always feel like just, being upfront and honest, I took off a few years to stay home and raise my family, and now I'm getting back to work. And then you move on to why you're right for that specific position. And in that gap on your resume specifically, I would hope that you would have or could have some volunteer work that you've done, some courses that you've taken, some ways that you can show that you've kept yourself current and, have a toe in the door of your industry while you have been, at home. So let's move on now to social media for job search for those returning to work. So as I said, LinkedIn is probably the most important tool you can have as far as job search. 95% of recruiters and hiring managers are using LinkedIn to source people for jobs. So if you're not on it, you're really missing out. You want to have an appropriate photo on your LinkedIn, dress professionally, and the new suit that you bought with your new hairstyle. You want to have a professional summary, which is going to talk about yourself, your skills, your brand, who you are and how you got there. You want to have keywords in your skills section. You get those from looking at job descriptions. If you want to work in the real estate field as a broker, you're going to look up, those jobs on through LinkedIn or through Indeed.com. You're going to get some keywords that keep popping up, and you want to make sure you have those words in your skills section, whether it's sales ability, communication skills, whatever those attributes are. You want to make sure that you're hitting those in your presentation. Recommendations, we talked about that as well. You want to connect with your former bosses, colleagues, and peers. You want to access your alumni network, which is a great networking tool on LinkedIn. Follow companies that you're interested in working for. That way you're going to get up-to-the-minute information when they post new jobs. Look at job descriptions, again, to get those keywords and to keep up to date on what's available in the marketplace. And join groups, join professional associations on LinkedIn. It's a great way to get up-to-date information about the industries you're interested in. And oftentimes these groups also list job openings. So it's a great place to be. Facebook. So the thing about Facebook that makes it, sort of different from LinkedIn is, LinkedIn is sort of one set of people in your life, and Facebook is often very different. LinkedIn is your professional connections. Facebook are your friends, quote unquote, and oftentimes these folks are people who are your friends since like 6th grade or summer camp or high school or maybe your sorority, who you haven't spoken to in a long time and maybe aren't up to date on you or what you're looking for. So I always say, throw it out there in your status on Facebook. Hey, looking for a job in commercial real estate in the New York area. Anybody have any leads for me? You never know what's going to come back. I know for myself, from my business, I get as much business and many new clients through Facebook as I do through LinkedIn. So I would say don't ignore it. You can utilize that as a tool as well. Twitter. So if we were in person, I would ask you to raise your hands and I would ask how many people are on Twitter. And I bet not a ton of you are. And I bet if you are, you're probably not using it for job search. And Twitter is one of my favorite job search tools. It's a great way to get the most up-to-the-minute information on the companies and people who you want to work for. You want to work in the financial services industry, you should be following, the top 25 companies that you're interested in working in. You should be following the reporters who tweet and write about the financial services industries, the publications that cover that area, and thought leaders in that area. And if you do all of that and you're diligent about keeping up with the information that you get, you will be the smartest person in the room when you have the opportunity to go in a job interview. Because what do we usually do when we are looking for jobs and you have an interview at Morgan Stanley? You're going to go onto the Morgan Stanley website and you're going to read information that probably hasn't been updated, in a month, a few months, maybe a year. If you're going on Twitter and following Morgan Stanley, you are going to have the most up-to-the-minute information on what has gone on at that company, and you will really be the smartest candidate in the room. So I highly recommend Twitter. If you don't want to tweet, that's fine. I don't care. But just be on it so that you can get the great intel. Follow leaders in the field, follow the industry experts. If you decide that you do want to tweet, you can share your Twitter updates on Facebook and LinkedIn and blogs. You can send direct messages to develop your network, and you also can search for jobs on Twitter as well. A lot of companies post job listings on Twitter. So I'm going to conclude with this slide, and then we're going to have time to take some questions. So we talked about a lot of things today to help you all return to work, or become better employed. So what did we go through today? So we talked about building confidence, which came up very many times. In one of the most important things you can keep doing is gaining those new skills, talking about yourselves, building a network. All of those things are really going to go into building your confidence. Taking some assessments, learning about what you're good at, what are your skills, what are your interests, what skills are you lacking, And once you learn about which skills you're lacking for your chosen next field or next gig, you're going to develop those skills. You want to create a board of directors who's going to help keep you on track. You're going to do some research on your career, whether it's industry research, specific job research, salary research for jobs in your area, and you're going to set goals and manage your time well in order to complete those goals and, be accountable to yourself. Put those non-negotiable work times in your calendars. You're going to utilize smart volunteering as a way to build your resume, gain new skills, and do additional networking. And finally, you're going to utilize social media in order to continue to build your brand online and to search for jobs and to network. So I've had a lot of success getting clients back to work using this roadmap. Realize that it can be, sometimes a long and a little bit bumpy road, but stay the course and it will happen. As we said from the beginning, 74% of people who want to get back to work will. So I hope that these tips and the roadmap will make it easier for you to get back to work. And if I can help you in any way on your journey, please feel free to contact me. This is my email and website. I'm leaving it up here for you. You can follow me on Twitter and certainly connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So thank you all for your time, and I'd love to take some questions from you now if people have questions.
Great. Pam, we've already had a few come in, so I figured I'll just go through some of them and we can take it from there. And just everyone on the call, just feel free to keep submitting your questions as we go. This is a great one. I've been out of the workplace corporate for 20 years and now an empty nester. I'm ready to return back to work, but the concern is my age, it's 55 plus. Will this play a major role? And, what are some ways to kind of work through that?
It's so interesting. I mean, I'm working with two clients who are exactly in this demographic right now. It is tough, and especially, being out of the workplace for 20 years. I mean, when going back to work after so long, you're looking at a completely different type of workplace environment than when you left. Especially in the technology realm, everything is so different. So will you face age discrimination? Yes. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There definitely is age discrimination, whether people feel it or not. Typically, the people who will be interviewing you and hiring you will be younger, may feel intimidated by somebody who's that age. I'm in my 50s as well, so I feel like I can say that with a smile. Someone can be intimidated, by someone that age. They may feel like training is going to be difficult. So what I feel, the best thing to do is come in armed and realize that this may be the case, that this is, the unconscious bias that we've been hearing so much about in the news, but unconscious bias against age. And come in prepared with, despite the fact that I've been out of the workplace, this is what I can do for you. This is how I've been successful, in other areas of my life, in other volunteer work. These are the classes I've taken in order to get my skills up to par with anybody in the workplace today. And what I would say, and we've done this with a lot of our clients, hire me for 3 months. If it doesn't work out, we'll part as friends. Let's give it a shot. And, so it's not a full commitment on anybody's part. And you'll give yourself the ability to prove yourself.
Okay, I think we've touched a great topic here. We have a few more questions around age coming in. So this one's interesting. This person is 56 on their resume. Should they tout their age and experience as a plus or try to hide it, get in, and get the interview?
I would say honesty is the best policy. Depending on how long this person has been out of the workplace, it's hard for me to necessarily answer. You know, you don't want to have experience that necessarily that's like, you know, from the 1990s, if you can help it. You know, the more recent, most relevant experience is the best to show. And, you know, your resume could be in sections, actually, you know, as, you know, putting your relevant experience up front and not necessarily doing the resume chronologically. So that's definitely an option, is to do a resume that's not fully chronological. But I think leaving your age off a resume is more of a red flag. I mean, not, you wouldn't put your age, but leaving, you know, the year you graduated from college, it's more of a red flag. And these resumes all go through like an applicant tracking system, typically when you're hired. I mean, when you're getting an interview. So the more traditionally formatted your resume is, with the right dates, ages, the better received it's going to be through these systems. And I hope that's helpful.
You know, it's funny to elaborate on that question, Pam. I just went through this, and I went with the resume writer. She did an ebook for us, by the way. So I will attach it to with this, because it seems like there'll be a lot of questions. And she did an early career snapshot for me, and she just put it at the bottom. It was great with some of my less relevant work. So exactly what you said. And she had just the 4 most relevant jobs up front, and the other jobs were in the bottom. And that resume, everywhere I sent it, I had an interview. I'm in my 40s, but it worked to my advantage having it that way.
Great, so great. I'm glad good. I'm glad to get that confirmation.
So to second that. So the next one is, the interview process is exhausting. I lost my job when my youngest graduated and left for college. Lots of transition. And yes, age discrimination and managing transition. Any advice? So I guess this goes in with what we were just talking about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, the advice I would say is, the advice I would give is just, you know, really the best way to get a door open for you, or the best way to get back into the workplace, is through someone who knows you. So I would say, you know, work on your network. Let everybody you know that you're in job search mode. You know, whether it's, you know, former parents from your child's school, you know, from the soccer team, your neighbors on your block or in your building, you know, let people know. I'm currently looking for work in the marketing or communications field. Is there anyone you know that I can connect with? Or check their LinkedIn and see if there's anyone that you know, that you can ask them. Oh, I see you're connected to John Smith at, you know, XYZ company. Would you feel comfortable making the introduction for me? Just, you know, try to just keep that networking going.
Great. This one, 56, 20 plus years government experience. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. It's not coming out. The last 5 years have been a full-time student. Sorry, I didn't mean to, I was like, had that happen.
That's okay.
The last 5 years have been a full-time student, and will be receiving my bachelor's degree with honors in healthcare management. I'd like to merge the new with the old. What's the best way to do that?
Oh, this is such a great question for me as someone who loves personal branding. First of all, congratulations on getting your bachelor's with honors. Good for you. That's a huge accomplishment. So I think, you know, the best way to do that, I'm a career changer as well, and I'm sure a lot of you on the call may be career changers too, not uncommon. The average woman has like 4 or 5 careers in her lifetime. So this is where you can really make your LinkedIn profile work for you. Tell your story. Explain how you went from one to the other. Explain how one fueled the other. Get that story straight in your head so you believe it, you know, and it's authentic to you. What did make you, you know, make the change? It sounds like you had a successful career, but you were looking for something more, or looking for something that, you know, this education could give you. Maybe when you were younger, you had a different path and weren't able to go get your bachelor's. And now, because you've gained this experience and earned money in this career that you loved, you want to utilize, you know, those skills and interests to build on that and do some, you know, and do something new. But you're still going to have transferable skills that you're going to take with you. And think about, you know, drawing on those to talk about yourself and why you're making this transition.
So the next one, this is, and we have about 10 more minutes, and we have just lots of great questions.
Okay.
So the next question is, a woman is returning to the workforce, basically a gap in employment due to illness. And, it seems like being upfront for the reason could maybe result in some discrimination. How do you propose addressing this?
I've also worked with clients who've had this as well. I feel that being honest is probably the best way to go about doing it. Assuming that you had a career before you were ill, and I hope that you're better now, by the way. But just to be able to say, I had a chronic illness that kept me out of the workplace for 2 years. I'm 100% healthy now. No chance for recurrence or whatever it is. And I want to use my skills and experience to get back to work. I always say don't apologize. Just be matter of fact about it, and then start talking about why they should hire you, why you have the skills that they should hire you. But, be direct, address it, and move right on would be my advice.
Love it. How do I best? No, it's true. I do that. I always think I have to hide having children. That's the one I always think I have. No,
I know. I mean, I do feel like you don't want to go into an interview and say you have 3 kids, because they can't ask you that, and it's really not relevant. But I would say if you've taken time off from the workplace to raise your children for 3 years, certainly let them know that you have great childcare in place and you're ready to work full time.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly, drop the child care. I love it.
Right.
Oh, this is a great one. How do I best communicate in my new search that I want someone to look at my overall experience of managing and developing people rather than my specific job that I did for the last 13 years?
Well, the best way to do that, I think, is via your resume and LinkedIn profile, and to put a skills section at the very top of your resume. In there's like an area where people can do a professional summary, and I would bring out those skills and then list your jobs after. But I would really talk about those key skills, whether it's managing, professional development, et cetera, the things that you feel are important that make you unique and make you hireable.
Wonderful. Okay. If your volunteer work is 3 to 5 years old, should you still rely on how those skills translate to a job you're interested in? Are they worth listing?
Only if the volunteer positions align with your job search goals. If they don't, then I would say no. If they do, then I would say yes.
Okay. Oh, this is a good one. How do you suggest getting past the very young HR managers who screen resumes online?
Well, I mean, a lot of times these resumes aren't screened by like actual people. They're screened by tracking systems, unfortunately. But, they will eventually get to these young HR managers or recruiters, and they are all very young. I would say the best thing to do is to really network yourself into a company, maybe not through them necessarily, but I have a client who is networking at interviewing at salesforce.com, and she wanted to get her resume into the right pile with the hiring manager. She didn't know the hiring manager, but she found a connection through her alumni association who worked at salesforce.com. So she connected with that person, and then that person got her resume into the right hands. So I would say it doesn't necessarily have to be the hiring manager who you have to connect with, but figure out a way to get a foot in the door at the company through someone else and ask them to recommend you.
Perfect. Here's another one. Should my resume include my objective of transitioning to a different career?
No more objectives on resumes. That's done.
Oh.
That should be on your LinkedIn profile. You can certainly talk about your career transition, much like I answered the other question about telling your story, and it's certainly something you can talk about in a cover letter. But but put it in the framework of the transferable skills that you have from one job that you're going to bring to the other.
Awesome. And we'll go through maybe a couple more questions. We have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, I'm trying to speak as quickly as I can. I see
no,
there's a lot
you're
of questions.
awesome. This is great. This is great. Should I create a scrubbed Facebook so I can submit a link on my resume when they ask?
Should I do what?
It said create a scrubbed Facebook page so that I can submit a link on my resume when they ask.
No, I wouldn't put a Facebook link on your resume. I would put the only link I would ever put on a resume would be, well, if you're applying for a job in the social media space, they might ask about your social media if they were looking for someone who was doing social media marketing or design or development. So I wouldn't say never, but typically you would only put either a LinkedIn profile link or nothing.
Perfect. Outside of leveraging a personal network, do you recommend working with an executive recruiter or contacting the hiring company directly?
Can you read the beginning of the question first?
Outside of leveraging a personal network, do you recommend working with a recruiter?
Yeah. So sure. I think sort of the more resources you can have, the better. I'm working with a young woman now who's in the financial services world, looking to make a change, but within that industry. And she's working with a recruiter, who has sent her out on positions. And nothing's hit yet, but it might. What I would say to just keep in mind that the recruiter is working for the company, not for you. So they're looking to make sure that, the company is happy, with the hire, and sometimes it's square peg, round hole. But I would definitely say that it does not hurt and it doesn't cost you anything. So why not?
Perfect. I love all these, the positive exclamation points too as I read these questions. You can see everybody's excited. So hi, Pamela. Great presentation, exclamation point. In my case, I'm a CPA with previous experience at a senior level position in the private sector. She worked there and then went to 5 years in government and was recently dismissed by the new administration. She's looking to return to private sector, but fears that the government experience may have a bad reception from potential employees. How do you make that desirable?
Well, I would say to look at it from, a skills, the area of, sort of what skills did she use in that government job, and what did she accomplish there? Did she get different types of management experience? Did she get experience working cross-functionally? Was it, what challenges did she face that she felt she was able to grow professionally in order to do that? And what could she bring back to the private sector, maybe that she learned in the public sector? I think you can really turn it into a positive, that she had a great experience doing that. She wanted to be able to work and serve her country. And, with the new administration, everybody was cleared out, but she felt that she gained X, Y, and Z from the experience. And she's happy that she had it and is happy to be able to bring that experience back to the private sector. I would just put a positive spin.
I'm going to give one more before time runs out, and then we could always respond with the rest via email. I'm trying to get back into engineering after 15 years. I'm working a part-time retail job right now and have for a few years. What are some types of smart volunteering out there? I've volunteered in organizations my children participate in. Now I'm in my mid-40s, and my experience is semiconductors, although I'm no longer in an area where these jobs are available.
Okay, that's a great question. On one of everyone's going to get the slides, Melissa, right?
Yep.
The PowerPoint? Okay.
Yep.
So on one of the PowerPoint, I think I must have been on the PowerPoint slide about smart volunteering. I list a few resources, and one of them is Catch-A-Fire, one of them is Taproot. I don't have the presentation in front of me anymore, but I know those are two. Volunteer Match is the third. So those are great volunteer websites where you can go on. They're for professionals. So someone who's an engineer, I bet, is going to have opportunities to volunteer your skills for free. Volunteering, obviously you're not getting paid, but working with small companies, maybe nonprofits or startups who need professional help. So it's a great resume builder. It's not like working at a bake sale. You know, you're using your brain, you're using your engineering or coding skills. You know, I'm not sure about semiconductors, you know, what that even necessarily is or does as far as, you know, where you can utilize those skills. But I would say to look on those websites to get an idea of where they could use help, where volunteer opportunities would be for an engineer.
Perfect. Well, Pamela, we approached now 2:01, and I just want to say thank you so much. This was so exciting and so many great questions. We will get everybody who's on the line. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will make sure you get a copy of the deck as well as the recording. And again, Pamela, absolutely amazing. I'm even now like, I have a bunch of questions now after listening to everyone. But you have everybody on the line. You have Pamela's contact information. Please connect with her. Her coaching skills are amazing. And there's a lot of great resource that you can provide. I mean, this is amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for sticking with this and for all your great questions. And as Melissa said, if we didn't get to your questions and you want to shoot me an email, I'd be happy to answer, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well so we can all be a part of each other's networks and help and support and continue to empower women.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.